So, how much do you actually need to invest in a condo in the Philippines right now? Because most people think it's just the price of the property, and that's where they get it completely wrong. There are hidden costs, there are phases, and there are strategies that can either make this a smart investment or a very expensive mistake. So, in the next few minutes, I'm going to break it down exactly what it really costs step by step so you can decide if this is something you should be looking at, especially if you're living in Australia. So, investment phase breakdown. Most people think buying a condo is just paying a deposit, getting the property, and that's not how it works. There are actually three main phases. So, getting in, acquiring it, and owning it long term. And here's the main problem: most investors only prepare for the first phase, the entry. But it's phase two and three where people run into issues, unexpected costs, cash flow problems, and bad decisions. So if you understand these three stages properly, you're already ahead of 90% of people entering the market. Here's something most people overlook, and not all condos in the Philippines are priced the same, and the location changes everything. If you're buying in Makati, BGC, and you're paying premium prices. If you go into Quezon City, for example, it's more affordable. And if you look at Cebu or Davao, even cheaper again. But here's the catch: cheaper doesn't always mean better. The real question is, where is the demand going? Where is the growth happening? Because the goal isn't just to buy, it's to buy smart. Now let's talk about what it actually takes to get started. First, you've got a reservation fee, usually around 20 to 50,000 pesos. So this just locks in the property. Well, then comes the big one: your down payment, typically 10 to 20%. But here's where it gets interesting. If the project is pre-selling, typically you don't need to pay that upfront. You can actually spread that over 2 to 4 years, often with 0% interest. And this is one of the biggest advantages compared to Australia. You don't actually need a massive lump sum to get in. This is where most people actually get caught off guard: the closing costs, the hidden closing costs. These things are like taxes, registration fees, legal costs, and usually they add up to around 5 to 10% of the property price. Now, the tricky part is some developers include this in the price and others don't. So, two identical properties might look the same, but one actually costs significantly more once you factor in everything. That's why you always need to ask the one simple question: what's the all in costs? Once you've paid your deposit, you still need to cover the remaining 80%, of course. And this is where the financing comes in. You've got about three main options: bank loans, which are cheaper but stricter; pag-ibig, longer terms; in-house, which is easier for approval but high interest rate. Now, I know a lot of people just look for the lowest interest rate, but the real strategy is what can you actually get approved for and what actually fits your long-term situation, because the wrong financing option can completely kill your returns. So once you actually own the property, the costs obviously don't stop. So your ongoing monthly ownership expenses, you've got association dues, property tax, insurance, and compared to Australia, these are actually relatively low. But they still do matter, because if you're planning to rent the property or run it as an Airbnb, these costs directly affect your cash flow. And this is where smart investors start to think differently. They don't just ask, can I afford it? They ask, will this property pay itself? Let's break it down even more. So say you're buying a condo for about 5 million pesos. Your down payment is around 1 million pesos and your closing cost is around 350,000 pesos. So your total upfront investment is roughly 1.35 million. Then your monthly repayment should sit around 38,000 pesos. Now, this is important because this gives you a real benchmark. This is what it actually looks like to enter the market. This is not theory. And here's the truth about the market right now: it's not booming, it's just stabilizing. Rental yields are moderate, growth is steady, not explosive. So, what does that actually mean? It means that strategy matters more now than ever. Short term rentals can outperform long term, and holding long term rentals for about 5 to 10 years is key. And infrastructure is everything. The investors who win are those who position themselves before the growth happens. Before you think about investing, there's a few things you need to check. Do you have your deposit ready? Do you have extra for your closing costs? Do you have your loan approval or eligibility? Or do you have a safety buffer? Because this isn't just about getting in. It's about staying in. And the last thing you want to do is to get about halfway through and realize you weren't actually financially prepared. To sum it up, here's the reality. This isn't just a quick flip opportunity. This is a long-term gain. But if you understand the structure and position yourself early, there's a real chance of opportunity here. So if you're serious about exploring this further, start by doing your own research. Look into different locations, understand the numbers, or if you want a faster path, you can download the playbook and see what options are available to you at the moment, because the biggest mistake is waiting till everyone actually catches on.